Hello students, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Hope you guys are having a good night. Today we're going to be working on some more things with slurs. That's been the topic of discussion the last couple weeks. So slurs are basically when you play two different notes or more into one bow stroke instead of playing them separately. So instead of going down up to play two notes, you actually go down and then up. So you're doing two notes in one bow stroke. It shouldn't change the rhythm. It only changes the way you phrase it, basically with how you're doing it with the bow. A lot of students, what they do with slurs, and it's a very common bad habit, is that they tend to grab the bow tighter as the note's changing. So as you're going from, say, note 1 to note 2, 1, 2, obviously you're moving the left hand, which is proper, but you shouldn't be moving the right hand along with the left hand. So you don't want to go 1 left hand moves, 2 left hand moves. You want the right hand to be moving the same, with a nice relaxed wrist, index finger, while the left hand is putting the fingers down, which is easier said than done. Let's go ahead and do a warm-up. Let's take open D and first finger on the D string, so D and E. And let's see how smooth we can make our slurs by trying to do the yo-yo concept, which I've mentioned before, which basically is when we're trying to keep the bow really smooth, going the same speed back and forth. So this is kind of what we're going for. Like that. And as you're doing that, try to focus on how you're bending the wrist coming up bow. Make sure that your fingers are curved in the bow hand as you're doing that. And just try to be as relaxed as possible, focusing on how fast you're moving the bow. So no matter if you're changing directions, no matter if you're in the up bow or down bow, the bow always moves the same speed in this drill. And the way to do this effectively is that you have to be thinking about the transition sooner than what you might be used to. So as I'm going down, right about here, as I'm not even to the end yet, I'm thinking about how my muscles are going to move as I bring it back. And this is the whole yo-yo concept. I want to really focus on how I'm transitioning back to the other direction of the bow. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to kind of get more of a zigzag sound, more of a bounce, bow bounce, like this. Like that. So we're not focusing on the transition. So we want more like that. Okay, let's try it with maybe a couple different notes. Let's do an actual one first finger, do third finger this time. So. And as you're doing that, let's see if you guys can actually do good at not lifting your left hand third finger too far off the fingerboard. Try to make sure that you're just lifting it very slightly, as that's going to help you to stay relaxed actually in the right hand. If you're lifting your finger way off the string, that's going to cause you to probably get tense in your right hand. So try to keep your fingers as close as possible with your knuckles up high in the left hand. You should see your knuckles up like this, as far as you should see arcs in your fingers and not flat fingers like this. Should be very arced to where your hand is well above the neck of the fingerboard. Like that. So I think that would be a great warm-up. Okay, well, last week we actually ended on song 16. So we're going to keep going to song 17, Long, Long Ago. And I'm going to give you guys hopefully some tips on how to achieve a good smooth sound in this piece. Let's try it together, and then I'll point some things out afterwards. All right, 1, 2, ready, go. All right, good. So hopefully you guys were able to follow along there. So a couple things I'm going to point out. So I think it's really easy for students to tense up their right hands, their bow hands, as they're playing fourth finger. So as you guys can see, I'm highly recommending that you guys place a D4 down instead of open A there, which obviously is a little bit more challenging, but it's going to really push you guys to develop your fourth finger. But what I notice that a lot of times when students are doing fours and slurs, they're really tensing up their right hand. They might start off with their hand in a good proper hand position with the bow hand, but then as they go, their fingers start to stiffen. So try to notice how your fingers are starting and how they're ending. Very common for students to kind of stiffen as they go, as they get to the tip, or as they do fourth fingers and slurs. So no matter what's going on, the right hand should always just be doing the same thing. It should be as relaxed as possible. The wrist should be bending. The finger should be curved. It's going to allow you guys to get a nice, smooth, controlled sound. Okay, so pay attention to that fourth finger. Make sure you guys are doing that with a nice right hand, and also trying to make sure you guys reach far enough for that. Definitely takes practice if you haven't done a lot of fours. At the end of the line, you have a little apostrophe, which basically implies a bow lift to be able to get down to the down bow. Make sure you guys do that. In general, I'm using just as much bow as possible. I'm not shortchanging any quarter notes. I'm trying to get from the frog to the very tip with each quarter note. That's good practice. Although it might be challenging for you guys if you guys are grabbing too tight on the bow to be able to do that and also get a nice transition. So that's the whole concept of warming up properly, trying to use the whole bow with slurs, use the whole bow with open strings. But yeah, the more bow you use, the better. And I would just try to do the whole bow for every one of these strokes in this particular piece, if possible. Other than when there's 2/8 notes with no slur. That's the only time. Okay, and then we have another fourth finger coming back. So pay attention to what you're doing in the right hand. Right here we have a dotted half note. It's very easy for students to hold that for not enough time regarding being 3 beats. So the same amount of time it would take you to play this quarter note, these 2/8 notes, and this quarter note right here, it should take you to play this dotted half note, which is 3 beats. But most students, what they'll do is they'll only play that for, say, 2 beats or even less, and that's a bad habit to get into. So what you should be doing, actually, you should be tapping your foot as you're playing this piece to really establish a good quarter note and allow you to not rush when you get to that dotted half note. So at the beginning of the second line, I'm just going to kind of bob and kind of explain how I'm counting. So it should be bum, tap, 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 tap. Now right here, tap, tap, tap. So make sure you guys are tapping, holding that for 3 beats. Okay, then we have another fourth finger. Make sure you guys are doing that. We have a crossover from D to G. Make sure that your elbow is getting up higher than the instrument when you get to this G string. It's really easy for students to have a drooping elbow as they're playing on the D or the A. But it should be your elbow above the instrument on G, even with the instrument on D, just below the instrument on A, and right at your side on E. So make sure that your right elbow is helping you guys achieve that proper bow plane, and that's going to allow you to not hit as many strings. It's going to allow you to get a clean sound. Okay, same thing kind of happens in the next line, or next part with crossing strings and also another fourth finger. If you guys are struggling to do everything at once, my suggestion would be to maybe take the bow out completely and work on plucking. So plucking is basically where you're taking your right thumb, putting it on the fingerboard, taking your right index, and just picking the string to just achieve proper left hand. You're focusing on left hand instead of right hand. So, I mean, this would be a great way to maybe play this if you're feeling overwhelmed with everything. Maybe as you're doing that, you could be focusing on tapping your foot and making sure that your knuckles are high and you have a good left hand hand position. Maybe focusing on the fourth finger. Okay, so yeah, you can always simplify if you're feeling a little overwhelmed with putting everything together. All right, and then we have fourth finger again, and then the D, which is for 3 beats again. Okay, so that should hopefully give you guys something to practice the long ago. Let's go on to the next part of the assignment, which is going to bring us down into the next lesson, which is slur crossings. So what I was just emphasizing with the elbow is kind of going to apply when it comes to this lesson, because we're actually going to have the elbow moving as we're slurring. So this is kind of combining elbow change with slurring. So as I do number 18, my elbow starts on, my right elbow starts on even with the instrument, and then it dips down below the instrument as I cross strings. But now what's key is as I'm slurring, I want the bow to still stay consistent and not change speeds. So most students might do it like this, like that, kind of jerky. But it should be a very even speed, and then it's just being driven by the elbow change to get a clean sound, and also lots of index. Elbow up. Elbow up. Make sure you're bending your wrist. Like that. And when you start to have different new techniques like this, it's really easy to go back to bad habits. So be paying attention to how you're holding the bow. You're probably not going to be bending your wrist like you maybe have been doing. So maybe pay attention to how it's bending coming up bow as you're doing the slur crossing. So, but yeah, the biggest things that allow you to get a good slur crossing is not force of the bow. It's control, which happens from the wrist bend and the index finger. Raise your hand if that makes sense. All right, we got attentive listeners. That's great. All right, well, let's go on to our last song, the Bow Scramble. So this is actually going to force us to slur cross half notes, which is going to really take some good bow sustainment. All right, let's try number 19. Ready, go. Like that. So there actually is some pretty tricky things in here as far as sustaining notes and not rushing. Most of you guys are going to want to play this too fast, but it should be tap, 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 tap. So make sure that you're holding each of these for 2 beats and not rushing, even though your arm is going to want to rush. If you're feeling like you're wanting to rush there, you're probably holding the bow too tight. You just have some tense muscles going on. So try to relax that. You could just work on maybe just open strings crossing, just practicing doing this. And do it to a second hand on the clock. So tick, so it'd be tick, 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 tick. That's going to help you to do that properly. And then make sure that the last note is 4 beats. That's also easily rushed. One thing I noticed in here, you can actually hold your second finger down, first and second finger down. Right here you can hold your first finger down. And right here you can hold your second finger down all the way there. So that's called a fingers down indicator. So if you're not able to do it, you might not be putting your finger on leaning more towards the G string side. As if you put it right on the very string, you might just nick the A string. So try to aim more towards the G string side so you avoid hitting the A string. That's where you get a really nasty cat noise. So work on maybe keeping your fingers down, work on the half note slurs, and just try to achieve a nice smooth sound while doing the rhythm. All right, well, as of now, I'm going to kind of hang out with those that are here in the live class and answer any questions they might have. Hope you guys end up joining us in the live classes. This particular class happens every Monday night at 8:30 Eastern Time. So hope to see you guys there.